Call the board meeting order. They read.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Chavez, Hightower.
Here.
Jackson.
Here.
Mason.
Here.
Mora. Here. O'Connell.
Here.
Sosa.
All right. Any public participation? Any old business? Okay, and for the new business, we're just gonna do them all at one time? Just for.
Dr. Sullivan.
So, so we asked that the Board of Education notice that these policies are revisions or updates and have been reviewed by legal counsel. We also wanted to mention that we added to the very last board policy, which is policy 506.02, staff dress code revised. And I just wanted to make sure that I brought to the attention of the board, we put this one on the agenda because you may recall back in June, we revised the student dress code. And a big part of the staff dress code was directly linked to the student dress code. So what we did as an administrative team, we made those adjustments. And this is for your review and approval tonight. So Mr. Jackson, I just wanted to mention that.
Okay. Any questions? No. All right, motion to vote.
Motion. I'll second it.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Mora. O'Connell. Motion carried.
Okay. We're gonna start the facility committee meeting, 6:35. Let's, roll call please.
Chavez. Hightower.
Here.
Jackson.
Here.
Mason.
Here.
Mora. Here. O'Connell.
Here.
Sosa.
Do you have any public participation written on all? Old business? Okay, we have, new business, or a presentation from our contractors.
Yeah, and if I could introduce that, Mr. Hightower. So we have today to give a presentation to the Board of Education, Mr. Dan Critta of Wold Architects, Ms. Jesselyn, I want to remember her last name. Kelly, I always call you Jesselyn. Ms. Jesselyn Kelly, also of Wold Architects, and Mr. Fred Schuster of Wold Architects. And then we also have from Gilbane, our building management company, Mr. Tom Leonard, who's with us, and Mr. Jeremy Rowley, thank you. I have to work on the last name. But our team is here today because about 1 year ago, in June, it was in August of 2020, the team made a presentation about the next steps in our process. So as you look today, there's a lot of work happening. Well, 1 year ago, approximately, it was brought up that we wanted to get to the design and development stage of Riley Northlake, and then also get to the bidding stage. And so all of that is planned to happen. But Ms. Kelly also mentioned back then that one of the things we want to look at is student safety, severe weather safety, things like that, where we are adding more glass into a building because it is driven by the instructional program and the curriculum, the idea, bring more light in, allow for more collaboration, not only for today, but also for the future. But then there's trade-offs with that. So we have now returned to that. Approximately a year later, all of these stakeholders have been met with. There's been a variety of listening tours to make sure that our design is meeting the needs of our current staff, but also future staff, currently learning needs and anticipating future learning needs. While we've done all of that, we then we want to just give an update of where we are with student safety and make sure that we are moving in the right direction with our new project at Riley Northlake. So, Ms. Kelly?
Thank you, Dr. Tolman, for that intro. So if we could pull up the presentation, I'll give Mr. Burnham a minute or two, but we'd really like to, again, highlight that this is kind of the culmination of the design development stage. We did all the schematic design for all of the capital projects together, and then took some time to focus on the new school and are back focusing on Riley and Northlake now. So really taking a look tonight, the agenda we're looking at on the next slide is just to review the curriculum-driven design and how that spreads across the district, and then review of the current and future shelter-in-place options. So we're really focusing on the storm safety aspect right now. And then just for context on the next slide, we are showing the overall plan just to get everyone oriented to what's happening at Riley and Northlake. So this should look largely similar to the last update you saw in schematic design, where we are doing the joint addition to link the two buildings. Northlake is in the upper right and Riley is in the lower left, with Wolf Road being at the bottom of the page. So to try and give you a little bit of orientation. And then the addition, if you'll remember, has the new gym for Riley and the new cafeteria space for Northlake. So it bridges and divides pretty much in the middle there. But moving to the next slide, just highlighting the learning environment space that's happening at the new building and the learning environment space that's happening at Riley. So I took Sunnyside and Riley for direct comparison, and the focus there is that extended learning environment. So being able to supervise that open learning area in the center, creating that open learning area in the center, it is something that we are able to do at all of the schools. So that is something that we are focusing when we talked about equity in design and that being really important. The biggest driver was that curricular equity, making sure that all the students had equal environments and opportunities in those environments. So that is really what's driving the conversation tonight about that shelter in place or that storm safety aspect. As you'll see, the walls to the corridor and that main learning commons have a significant amount of glass. That is in part due to having students be able to go out into the learning commons and being able to supervise. At the new building, it'll be operable walls because they are a little bit more self-contained pods. At Riley, they are going to be fixed, but they're going to have the same level of transparency from building to building. And then really taking a look at what that does in terms of shelter-in-place safety. So part of the difference here is that by code, it is required that the new buildings have a fully redundant tornado shelter, and that is not required at renovation projects. And that is in part due to the significant cost burden on school districts. So that is something that we were moving forward with and planning for in all of our referendum conversations. But really just wanted to take a look that, all of this is driven by that need for equity and that desire to make those learning environments pretty close to the same or have the same amenities. So going to the next slide, I'm going to present three different looks, and we're calling them options, but three different looks at shelter-in-place opportunities in the existing building and in the new proposed design. So we'll go through these and then answer any questions that you all have. But this is just taking a look at Northlake, really just highlighting that the design that's happening on the first floor and the lower level isn't impacting their shelter-in-place protocol from what it is today. So this isn't really the focus here, but did just want to give a little bit of context. And then moving into Riley, we're looking at what the existing shelter-in-place plan looks like. Everything in green is an area that students currently go to now from the second floor and the first floor. And the reason they're able to do this is because typically in school planning, you'll go to a reinforced concrete wall or block wall to have your safe environment, away from as much glass as possible and away from long span structures. So that's kind of the unofficial criteria for that. So looking at the right-hand side, the proposed design really highlights what happens when we add all that glazing from the corridor into that main area. So just wanted to give you a little bit of context of what area is being impacted. And then on the right, we've actually added a leg because of the way we're infilling that main door off of Wolf Road. So just a little bit of difference there. If you want to go to the next slide, Joe. So this brings us to option A. And the big part here is looking at maintaining a shelter-in-place plan that is similar in procedure to what happens now. So looking at those opportunities that already exist within the building to do that shelter-in-place. With this scenario, however, you'll notice that we have, a significant amount in the core of the building that is impacted. And so with the buildings being connected, you're actually able to get to North Lake without leaving the building. So it is an option, and there is space available to move students from Riley to North Lake in the event of a storm. And we've kind of given a cost magnitude. I know that we're not presenting the full budget at this point, but we did want to let everyone know kind of what it looks like in order of magnitude for the options we're presenting. But this is basically as is a $0 from base design, no impact to the budget. So then moving to option B, this has yellow bars where all of those glass areas are into the corridor, and this would be essentially reinforcing the glazing. So there are storm or tornado resistant windows that we would be able to anchor into the space to keep that space as essentially as it was, and still maintain all the glazing. So you'd be able to shelter in place the way you do now, and you'd be able to fit all of your students in the core of that building. And then you'd be able to basically self-contain your Riley population inside the Riley footprint. So this is something that it just lessens the impact. Glass is one of those things that is kind of a trigger. In meeting with the fire chief, we talked through all of these options, and he did reassure us that we're having the right discussion and in the right path. But just wanted to highlight that this is something that would be an acceptable option from their perspective. And then we did talk about where those interventions would be placed. So there was an option to put it on the exterior of the building, but that then would also require you to do the interior so that you have all of that protected space. So as of right now, we are just proposing that the interior windows into the classroom are the ones being reinforced. And if there are any desires to reinforce with a film on the exterior of the building, that's something that would be additional or outside of this scope in this option. So then moving to the last option, option C, it would be to harden the new gymnasium structure. So inside that addition, we have the opportunity, because we're studying this now, to add some reinforcing similar to what we're doing at the sunny side of the MacArthur building. We wouldn't do redundant systems because that is something that is not required by code, but it would give a structural shell that's reinforced a little bit more like a storm shelter in that scenario. So with that comes a couple of things: a redundant structure, so it basically has to stand on its own like its own bunker, and it needs to have that second line of masonry wall or fully separated structural line and fire separation. It would also require any glazing in that space to be that storm-rated glazing. So it will start to limit your opportunities for use to the outside or viewing from that hallway into the gym. And that is something that we're currently planning on based on design, but we wanted to get some feedback from this group. And then that is obviously the highest magnitude of cost impact. So this is something that if the board wants to consider this direction, we would need to have some additional discussion just based on where budget sits. But taking a look, these are kind of the three distinct options for all of this, and wanted to hear your thoughts and get some feedback from all of you that we can take back to our design team and have further discussions with the administration. So Dr. Sullivan, did you have any?
Yeah, so kind of a quick summary, because I know that was a lot, everyone, so thank you, and Ms. Kelly, thank you. So the summary basically is, as Ms. Kelly referenced, we met with Chief Feldman, and the entire group here, we did a building tour with Chief Feldman to go over these questions. And he was very pleased with the structure of Riley. His particular item of wanting to know was what was the structure of the ceiling above the main floor of Riley. And when he found out it was a combination of concrete and steel, he was very pleased with that. But he was concerned because he doesn't like a lot of glass. And what he said by that is, he knows it's the trend. He knows every building is doing it, not only schools, but anywhere you look, that's the modern trend. But he's always thinking the what if, the worst case. And so he assured us it is a safe building. The way it is designed, it is safe. We are talking now about, let's say, shelter in place for a tornado. Where would kids go? We can take care of that in our current situation, and they are safe. That's option A. Not only with Riley as it currently exists, but because the buildings are now connected, they're essentially one building. So if we had children, let's say, in the gymnasium at Riley, when we got word that there was severe weather, generally with severe weather, we have time. But the alarm will go off, or we'll get the alert, severe weather, tornado warning, and then we go into our stations for that. If there were kids, let's say, in the gym at Riley, instead of walking back into Riley, they literally could walk right to Northlake, and it's already, there's plenty of room there. Because Northlake goes into the basement, they have a lower level, but Riley does not. So the interior hallways of Northlake, for example, don't have this issue, because although there's renovation, it's not the extent as Riley. So the Riley children are safe. But what Chief Feldman suggested is, if we put glazing on that glass, and I believe, Mr. Schuster, it is a, I'm trying to remember the term.
Or a laminate.
A laminate, right, which would go on the glass, and that was approximately $100,000. So if that went on all the glass in that main floor at Riley, he would be comfortable with that, because that wouldn't shatter. So because again, we're talking interior, something would have to go into the building from the outside, then impact the glass on the interior, but even that glass already is at code.
Right.
But he would be more comfortable if there was even additional protection, because it's very similar. Riley Northlake will be very similar to MacArthur. But MacArthur, because it's brand new construction, which is option 3, it has its standalone storm shelter, meaning it has electricity, it has plumbing, it literally is its own building, which is designed to resist, 250
mile per hour
winds. So none of our other schools have that. So we can't get to that at any of our other schools. But we can continue to make each of our schools safe in their unique way. So Riley has some unique opportunities right now, because the design is being driven by our curriculum and by our program. But because we are adding more glass, we can take this additional precaution, which would be, you were estimating $100,000.
Yeah, based on some of the unit prices in Gilbane's team, that's what it looks about.
And then the other would be the $500,000 option, which would be taking the Riley gym at the Riley Northlake project and making that more reinforced, strengthened. I think we talked about precast walls, for example, unique jointing that would hold it together, and a specialized roof. But again, none of that is required. We just thought, since we're talking about it, we would offer the option. So it's safe, we can make it even a little bit safer, and then we could go even further. But we're talking about equity. We're not doing that currently at Whittier. We're not currently doing that at Jefferson. So we want to be careful with how many enhancements we make. But I thought what Chief Feldman said was important to note about glass. He said it's a trade-off. It's great for collaboration, which is what we need. But it has that additional concern in a catastrophic event. I hope that summarizes.
Yeah.
Just noticed, we're in the early stages of design. Do we have any other options that we have less glass? See, I'm kind of skeptical about glass as well. I do work at the airport, so we have that tendency to have, when they come in, we have a problem moving passengers to the safe area. It's all glass everywhere. So do we have another option of using less glass?
It certainly is something that we could do. I think the big thing would be we need to go back to the core planning group and make sure that that is in alignment with the overall goals that they've set between the two buildings. So with SD or schematic design happening for both schools at the same time, part of what was considered for the new building was made with consideration that similar things could happen at Riley and Northlake. Obviously, there are different trade-offs and different conditions, especially with regards to the storm safety that would impact that. So it is certainly an option to take some of the glass. It's just the trade-off of what does it do to the equity of the learning environment.
Less glass with, I guess you call it coating?
A film or laminate.
Film or laminate,
It's
okay.
a little bit like a car windshield that has a,
We don't want to increase the cost of the project. We definitely want to make the environment much safer for our children. And I can tell you, glass is not, in this area, glass is not one of our, safety concerns. It's major safety concern. So we go back and get an option where less glass, using your concept of coating, and bring that to us in a review of the declaration going forward. So we're still in the design stage.
Yeah, and we can certainly, are you asking to see no glass or just a portion of what we're
We
showing?
want to make it as safe for our children as possible.
Okay.
That's what we want. We know what the intel about glass, we know what the outcome about glass, but we want to make it as safe as possible. And we have an option where we can reduce the amount of glass. That's what we want to look at.
Absolutely.
But if it's, that's only if we're going to have the kids sheltered by the glass. Because I myself, I would option A, I want the kids to go down to the basement. During the storm. So if that's the case, then they won't be by that glass during the storm. We don't need that coating on it.
Mr. Jackson, the Riley structure does not currently
Right.
have a basement.
Right, that's the issue.
Northlake
What
has a
about-
basement, so Northlake students go to the basement. Riley students used to go to the core of the building.
Right.
Now, some of the walls, are glass.
But when we connect the buildings, then that's
We
the option.
connect the buildings, it is an option, and, I guess it would be an option to send all of Riley kids to the first floor, are you saying to the first floor of Northlake? Because I don't know.
I also understand that all of the kids from Northlake and Raleigh would be able to fit into Northlake basement during a tornado or whatever.
No, it would be a portion. So some of them would be able to fit in the green area shown on the main level, and then some would need to travel to Northlake.
Because we're talking, it's a great question, Mr. Jackson. We have about 450 kids in both schools. So about 800 kids. So and I used to be the principal at Northlake, so I know that all 450 can fit in the lower level. It's both locker rooms, men's and women's, because at that time, it's considered emergency. So children go in the locker rooms and in the hallways. But there is space for more kids, but not for 450. But the interior hallways of Northlake would be approximately what they currently were doing at Riley before adding more glass. So the interior hallways of Northlake could be used. That's why Ms. Kelly put that up there as a cost of zero, because that's literally using our existing structures. But there's not a basement that's large enough for everyone.
Is there a capacity concern at Riley if you kept as is, didn't change the glass design at all? and then you were limited to just the highlighted areas versus when they had the whole area in terms of, so we're talking about 400 plus students broken out into just those two and, you know, whoever's in the gym going in North Lake. Is there a concern that those two areas, there's not enough for the 400 plus students, or call it 400?
Yeah.
There is, yeah.
And I think part of that concern, Ms. Mora, is the children aren't here right now to practice this with, but we did confer with the previous principal, Dr. Myzanik, and we know exactly how they had the kids at Riley prior to this. And what they did is they wrapped the kids around the interior and then wrapped the kids around the exterior of the hallways in the interior of the building. But we're thinking of changing that because of the glass. And so instead of snaking around twice, we're thinking of focusing on the ends. And the halls are wide, and it includes partial stairwells, so there's space there. But we also, just in case, we know we could use North Lake as well. So that's why I want to present that one option of, it would be a zero cost, it would just be training everyone, just like we actually have to do with MacArthur Sunnyside now, with how we have the parking set up and the fencing, we have to adjust our evacuation plans. So it would be a similar thing for when the children return to Riley North Lake, then we would adjust those plans. But we actually have to do that. We've got to lay it out, and then we have to think, do we have a child with a disability, let's say, that we have to assist. So there's a lot of thinking that goes into it. And if I understand too, Ms. Kelly, whatever we decide, the board decides, we also, it could impact the bidding. Is that correct?
Right, so because we're at the end of design development, something that we're working with in order to help with the construction schedule is to get an early structural package out in September. So that's something that we've been working closely with the administration and Gilbane on, to make sure that the addition is something that can get kick-started as soon as the ground is ready, to make sure that that's open as soon as possible. With that, the structural design decisions need to be made a little bit earlier, and that's pretty much the crux of it and why we're talking about this now. I think the biggest shift is more in understanding the design criteria for that gym space. If the board is considering moving towards that option C, hardening that gym space, that is really the critical decision at this point. And the other items, you know, the amount of glazing, how, if it's laminated, or if you're moving towards sharing the storm safe facilities between 0 or 2 schools for that option A. What we really need to understand is the board's preference on whether or not we really pursue option C at this point.
And then, Ms. Kelly, if I could ask, based on what President Hightower asked, could a design be presented with less glass?
Absolutely. Yeah, and it would be between the magnitude of A and B at this point.
Yeah,
So one point of clarification. Joe, can you go to the one that had the yellow window locations in that center area? That have option B. So the hybrid model is to be looking at those areas you see with the yellow bar and maybe trying to reduce some of the glass there. But what we're calling laminate or film glass, we actually had to cost it to be true storm shelter glass. So the glass that would go into those openings would be the same equivalent as what you're putting in the storm shelter at the new building. Just so I want to make sure that was clear, that you're basically creating a resistance there that is consistent with the wall or the requirements of a true storm shelter. So they're just to give a gauge of the likelihood of that shattering and going airborne is the same as it would be in a true storm shelter. So, but it's something we could do is looking at, you know, maybe squeezing some of that yellow area as glass in conjunction with that storm shelter level of glass, because I think it'll be important for those educators to still have a sight line to where they're sending kids out and be able to supervise and vice versa, that they know what's going on in the classroom.
Mr. Critter, they don't, for Riley, they don't have as much glass to the hallway or to the open collaboration space as sunny side because operable wall and just the existing structure, so it is limited on, it's not the full width of the classroom. So part of it is wall, and part of it is glass.
Yeah. For instance, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but the doors are about 3 feet, you see little quarter swing doors there. It looks like about an 8 to 9 foot area of
Yeah.
glass. That could go down to something like 6 or 7 or 6 foot, and then we could look at reducing the panel, give a little reduction in cost, and maybe a little more peace of mind that there's less chance that it being a detriment in the storm situation.
And then Ms. Kelly, getting again back to President Hightower's question, we then would need to hear from Gilbane about where we are with budget, because it could be that there is no cost, even if it's $100,000. We may be within budget, we just don't know right now.
Correct. So this is basically letting you know the value of additional, it's not really additional scope, but additional enhancements on top of the original design.
So September should target date for practice, all right?
Just for structural steel and foundations and potentially precast concrete.
So you bring another presentation back for us in the next board meeting, how we're gonna do this?
So we could do that, and we also could have a special board meeting if we needed to in August to make sure that you had time if you had to adjust the bids. Would that be accurate?
Yes. So if the board is considering that option C and really wanting to look at that as something credible for bid, then we would request a special board meeting earlier in August to make sure that we can accurately get that into the bid documents. And then you can see the overall budget with it and help make that determination. But if that's not something that the board is willing to entertain, that is something that we'll certainly have an update at your next regular meeting for the in-between option as well.
Well, I think the clarification being on option B really got our attention.
Yeah.
That you can condense the amount of glass, and we still have create a safe environment for them, and still look pretty nice. You know,
And we're trying to keep that equity of that nice
Exactly.
open space at both sides of the district as much as we can.
what do you think?
I think, well, I wanted to ask another clarifying question, and it goes back to option A. So you said that there is capacity concerns, right? So I guess just to be straightforward, my question is it recommended that that is not a consideration, that we don't keep it that way, whether it means we reduce the glass or we look at some other, like, would you say that going with option A is a bad choice for the children or puts anyone at risk? Because that's the part that I'm kind of trying to wrap my head around.
Understood. Right. So option A is really very close to what you do now, and I think the big consideration there is just distance. I don't think it's any more or less safe than the other option. It's just you'll have to, and part of what Dr. Sullivan was talking about is plan for where students are and how far or how long. Part of our discussion with Chief Feldman was time. So time is really of the essence in making sure that you can get students from Riley into North Lake in the same amount of time it would take them to shelter appropriately in Riley. So ultimately, I think, option A or option B, they're pretty equivalent. It's just a matter of how you'd like to manage your facility.
Yeah, I guess I just didn't want to have an option where there's any risk of children or where we're.
Understood.
Yeah.
Right.
And the risk we are concerned with capacity, right?
Yeah, just that, we're saying, hey, we're limiting the space, and now that means that the kids might be super tight, or someone's gonna be outside of the scope of the green area, and we put someone in danger. That would be my concern.
Great. We have any other question or concern? Ms. Lacy, awful quiet.
Well, my mind was reeling, but once you explained, obviously, yeah, with the windows and the options that we could adjust, I'm okay with that. Knowing that also that the children, knowing how the school operates all the children are always scattered out. At any given point in time, there are children in the gym. So if something does occur, those children within that area can move over to North Lake.
Sounds good.
Well, we like to
Whatever's
suggest is-
safe for the kids, I think that's our key.
we would like to just have to meet a special session, cover another improved plan and focus on option B. And still address the concern of which we have with the capacity. And move forward and see what we got, what it looks like. Because my biggest concern is the amount of glass going from that new, in that new facility.
Understood. So yeah, we'll bring back in our August update, the revised plan. And then we'll do a little bit more of a capacity analysis so that we know how many students are fitting in those three areas.
And that request will not delay the movement of construction phase, right?
No,
We
so
don't
it
want
just,
to delay it, we don't want to delay it at all.
no, understood. No, I think what I'm hearing from the board is that the direction we're going towards is option B, and that doesn't impact the structural package at this time.
What's the cost option be?
I go back underground.
Yeah, right now. Do less stuff, so.
That's the yellow, how would you explain the yellow? Just, late board and Mr. Chairman, go-to person.
He's been in all of our planning
Has he?
reviews, so he knows what's
Good.
happening. But those yellow bars are where we have the glazing, the visual glazing into that open learning commons area. And so we look at providing a storm window system similar to what we're doing in the storm shelter. But for the revised option, we'll actually reduce the amount of glass that's there. So right now we're showing 9 or 10 feet in length. We can shrink that and still maintain the overall design concept.
So less natural light? Is that what we're talking about?
No, it'll be the same natural light just because we're not impacting any of the exterior windows with this. It'll just be, 3 or so feet less glazing from the inside wall into the hallway space.
All right. Any other questions, consider?
No.
No? Thanks for joining us, I really appreciate it.
Glad to be here. Mr. Duncan, is there anything?
No, I think that's good direction. I know Justin's been talking to Stuart, our estimator. We're preparing our latest design development estimate on phase for this Friday, the 30th. I think the direction I can give Stuart is to concentrate on B, but that there'll be some forthcoming, design sketches there that he can sink his teeth into to cost those for the option that we want to look at for the Friday estimate.
Yeah.
And then not to spend any time on A or C. Well, A is nothing anyway, or C. And then we'll just go with what we come up with tomorrow or Wednesday for a revised sketch. And we'll concentrate on costing that for an updated or hybrid B option.
You want to add anything to the conversation? You want to do? No? Let me see, this is nice, appreciate it. Jessica, anything else for us?
That's it. Just thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
No questions from the board?
Did we go over the executive session? Did we go over the executive session?
Yeah.
Yeah. We went over it, or was that covered?
Any questions about the executive session?
No, I'm just curious if we went over it or not.
Well, we can go over it.
Okay.
Hello.
I was gonna say, I think that's in the regular board packet.
Yes.
This is the facilities committee, but I believe you will be, you're staying, so if there are questions.
Okay,
Go over it.
thanks, Jessica, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. No other questions? Got a motion to adjourn? Ms. Mason, Ms. O'Connor. Roll call, please.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Mora. O'Connell.
Aye.
Motion carried.
All right. Moving right along. Okay, we're gonna go right into our regular board meeting. Roll call, please.
Chavez.
Here.
Hightower.
Here.
Jackson.
Here.
Mason. Here. Mora.
Here.
O'Connell.
Here,
We have a watch.
we have the bid awards. So, these are the three bid packages that we had to rebid. So the suggested motion is that the Board of Education award the rebid trade package 09D tile work to Superior Floor Covering Incorporated in the amount of $1,205,000.
Motion. Ms. Mason. Ms. O'Connell. Roll call, please.
Mason. Mora. O'Connell. Chavez. Hightower. Jackson.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And the next item, that the Board of Education accept and approve the request for withdrawal of bid from Spec Athletic Incorporated and award the trade package 09F gym flooring work to Commercial Floor Covering Incorporated in the amount of $91,955.
Motion. Ms. Mason. Mr. Jackson. Roll call, please.
Mora. O'Connell. Chavez. Hightower. Jackson. Mason. Motion carried.
And that the Board of Education award the rebid trade package 14A elevator work to Schindler Elevator Corporation in the amount of $123,700.
Motion. Ms. O'Connell. Mr. Jackson. Roll call, please.
O'Connell. Chavez. Hightower. Jackson. Mason. Mora. Motion carried.
And the next item is the list of the alternates. The majority we are rejecting and accepting alternate 18 for the rough-in of D2 data feed for future use. The suggested motion is that the Board of Education reject alternates 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 15, and 17, and the acceptance of alternate 18 as presented.
Ms. Moore. Ms. Mason. Roll call.
Hightower. Jackson. Mason. Mora. O'Connell. Chavez. Motion carried.
Question. What's driving all the alternates?
So I'm sorry, we include alternates, some of them to address the possibility of being over budget. At the time, we anticipated that the Gardner Sunnyside bids might come in over budget based on market conditions and things that Domain and Bold were experiencing on other jobs. So we added alternates to see if that would be a cost savings and if the bids were coming in over the anticipated amount, then we would be able to address that. Overall, the Sunnyside MacArthur project at this point is about $2.5 million below budget. So that was the reason why some of them are not very significant in the amount. So it wasn't the trade-off for small savings would have given us an expensive maintenance.
Okay.
And so that was the biggest trade-off. And then the largest alternate was the glazed interior wall, which the alternate was similar, but would not provide, similar where you could have the same sight lines to see the collaborative space. However, when the doors, the glass panels were shut, both did not butt up against each other. So one was, had a gap in between, so the sound would travel. So you would have that, the classrooms that had teaching, learning, doors, panels shut, would still, their sound would travel out, and the sound from the collaborative space or from the classrooms would travel travel in. So that was the main reason to reject that, considering we were $2.5 million under budget.
Okay.
If we were over budget, we would have had,
To consider.
we would have had to consider that.
Okay. So it's more, it's not, it's more in terms of the cost savings that we're considering. It's not necessarily impacted by scope changes that were considered. Right. Scope changes that were considered in case we had to make changes affected by budgetary constraints.
Right, and by including them as alternates, they would be part of the contract versus change orders at a later date.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? What else, Walt?
Okay, did we want to review, or wait to my report to review the facilities update from Gilbane?
Yes.
We can do it now? Okay. So, Gilbane has provided their update on what's taken place so far and should include the kind of compressed Gantt chart.
I saw that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that.
Did you have questions on any of this?
What I do have questions, the big question on is I saw reference to RFIs. Are we putting RFIs to the marketplace or are we putting RFPs out to the marketplace?
So the RFIs referenced are requests for information, clarification on details, clarification on specifications within the already bid documents from contractors that are already in.
Off of the RFPs that were already provided to the marketplace?
Off of the issue for construction drawings and specifications, right?
So the scope has already been established?
Correct.
Okay. And that's my, and what I'm trying to understand is, are we asking the vendors to provide recommendations based on an RFI? Or have we already considered what that scope is and we're asking vendors for clarification, additional information?
Yeah, so those RFIs are Gilbane and our subcontractors requesting clarification from the Wolf team on details, drawings, specifications, things like that. The scope is already bid and captured. It's just finalizing some of those minor details. You know, maybe there's a conflicting document here and there. Which one are we proceeding? Which one are we following with, kind of thing.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Is that something?
No.
Thanks for that, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, participation, go to Rick Garfield.
We have a letter of resignation from a teacher dated June 29th, 2021. Letter of resignation from a teacher dated 7/1/21. Letter of resignation from teacher dated July 8th, 21. Letter of intent to retire from teacher dated 7/14/21. Letter of resignation from district substitute dated 7/14/21. Letter of resignation from teacher aide dated 7/14/21. Letter of resignation from teacher, letter of intent to retire from teacher dated 7/14/21. Letter of resignation from teacher dated 7/15/21. Letter of resignation from teacher dated 7/15/21. Letter of resignation from teacher dated 7/16/21. Letter of resignation from teacher dated 7/19/21. And letter of resignation from teacher dated 7/19/21. Hopefully I've got all those. Then there is a FOIA request, research and development compliance, and data bid. And there are thank you cards not produced and no public comments. Mr. Byrne, did we have any public comment online? I didn't see anything.
Have a motion to accept? Ms. O'Connell? Second. Roll call?
Jackson. Mason. Mora. O'Connell. Chavez. Hightower. Motion carried.
Okay. No business, okay. We'll just approve the minutes for the previous section. For the motion, approve the minutes, that's it. Ms. O'Connell? Motion.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. Mora. O'Connell. Chavez. Hightower.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, reports.
Sorry, I jumped ahead, Mr. President. No business.
You have no business?
No business.
All right, give me that. All right, thank you. Family reports. Is that your? Is it back in the house, sorry?
No business.
No business?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
The suggested motion is that the Board of Education approve the accounts and claims payable authorization as presented.
Thank you.
And there were no questions.
Mrs. Travis,
No business.
thank you very much. A motion? Mrs. Jackson? Mr. Moore? Roll call, please.
Chavez. Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. Mora. O'Connell. Motion carried.
Okay, can I have a motion for the closed session? Mr. Jackson? Mr. Mason? Roll call?
Mora. O'Connell. Chavez. Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson. Mason. Motion carried.
We'll go to closed session.
Would you like to stay here or go to? Monday morning. This is a brutal week. Ready to go? Good.
All right. Consideration of the under business, any reports from the board?
Okay, we had a PACE meeting on the 15th of July, and the only thing I'm gonna say about it, I mean, everything was good. We are changing our meeting dates to Wednesdays, so it's the third Wednesday instead of the third Thursday. And I've got all the dates, and I think somebody here has them all. Do we have them, Angie? Did they send them over to you?
I could ask her for them, so.
Okay, just so everybody knows that, but so our next regular meeting will be Wednesday, August 18th at 6 o'clock, okay? So there was a conflict with our board president. he was having a problem, so we just changed it. That worked out better for Brian, so we were fine with it, okay?
Anything else?
Nope, I got it here, I'll hand it to you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Especially hearing reports from.
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. We have a policy legislation meeting right before this one. We report next week on your minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. And we have a facility meeting next also, so we'll put those in next week. Okay. Anyone else have any reports? No reports done? Okay, moving right along. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, sir.
Okay, first, we ask that the Board of Education accept the resignations of the following personnel as presented. Cheryl Allaire, Brandon Banks, Catherine Cavoto, Dawn Tipton, Jacqueline Ferrantino, Brittany Hochstetter, Stephen Jordan, Karen Krolakevich, Ann Rothstein, Elizabeth Shockey, Catherine Sanders, and Christina Sauter.
I can't wait to see Ms. Travis report. Have a motion.
I'll move.
Ms. O'Connell, Mr. Jackson. Roll call, please.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. Mora. Aye. Motion carried.
We ask that the Board of Education accept the resignation of James Ferguson, Principal Sunnyside Intermediate School, effective July 22nd, 2021.
Motion, please. Mr. Jackson and Ms. O'Connell. Roll call.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. Mora. O'Connell. Chavez.
Aye.
Motion carried.
We ask that the Board of Education accept the intent to retire from Ms. Deborah Brenner, teacher at Northlake Middle School, effective at the end of the 2023-2024 school year.
Motion. Ms. Moore
I'll second.
and Ms. O'Connell. Roll call, please.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. Mora. O'Connell.
Aye.
Motion carried.
As discussed in closed session, we ask that the board approve the reassignment of Nancy Tortora from principal of Jefferson Primary School to principal of Sunnyside Intermediate School. And that the board approve the appointment of Ms. Paris Grant May from assistant principal at Jefferson Primary School to principal of Jefferson Primary School, effective for the 2021-2022 school year as presented.
Motion.
I'll move.
Ms. O'Connell, Ms. Mason. Roll call, please.
Mason.
Aye.
Mora. O'Connell.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. And Mr. Byrne, I'm not sure if Ms. Grant May or Ms. Tortora is available. I think I see them on the screen. We're so pleased you're able to join us. Would either of you like to say hi to the board, please? If you can.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. First of all, I want to say thank you all so much. I am overjoyed. I am so excited. I have been trained by some amazing people. My lovely Mr. Tora, I don't know. I'm just so glad she'll be down the street. And Mr. G, I love them both. I told Dr. Sullivan and Ms. Travis, I'm going to make you all proud. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Hey, well.
And I am so lucky that I have two schools in the district that I can truly call home. So I'm just going home again to Sunnyside. I can't wait to get started. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. All right.
I just have a few more. We ask that the Board of Education employ the following teachers effective August 23rd, 2021, pending all employment paperwork. Caitlin Colleran Whittier, Lane 1, Step 4. David Kavanaugh Jefferson, Lane 1, Step 1. Soshi Mondragon Riley, Lane 1, Step 1. Elizabeth Panapinto Jefferson, Lane 1, Step 1.
I'll move.
Ms. O'Connell, Ms. Moore. Roll call.
Mora. O'Connell.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. Motion carried.
We ask that the Board of Education accept the following resignation: Kimberly Anderson, Riley, teacher aide, effective immediately.
Mr. Jackson? Ms. Mason? Roll call, please.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. Mora.
Aye.
Motion carried.
We ask that the Board of Education employ the following personnel effective August 23rd, 2021, pending all employment paperwork: Michael Devine, teacher aide; Erica Martinez D. Pimentel, lunchroom supervisor; and Geraldine Alexander, lunchroom supervisor.
Motion? More, Mr. O'Connor. Roll call?
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. Mora.
Aye.
O'Connell. Chavez.
Aye.
Motion carried.
We ask that the Board of Education accept the following policies for a first reading and adoption: Policy 218, Policy 231, Policy 302, Policy 313, Policy 441, Policy 612, Policy 618, Policy 619, and Policy 506.02.
For motion? Mr. Jackson? Ms. Moore? Roll call, please.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. Mora. O'Connell. Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Motion carried.
We ask that the Board of Education approve the following fundraiser as presented: Jefferson, Sunnyside, and MacArthur PTO Back to School Bash.
Ms. Mason? Ms. Jackson?
Mason.
Aye.
Mora.
Aye.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Motion carried.
We ask that the Board of Education declassify closed session minutes as presented: November 16th, 2020, December 14th, 2020, January 25th, 2021, January 25th, 2021, February 22nd, 2021, number 1, February 22nd, 2021, number 2, March 22nd, 2021, April 28th, 2021, number 1, and April 28th, 2021, number 2, and that the following closed session minutes were not declassified: November 22nd, 2010, December 13th, 2010, May 23rd, 2011, June 27th, 2011, July 25th, 2011, August 22nd, 2011, September 26th, 2011, October 3rd, 2011, and October 24th, 2011.
Motion? I'll move. Mr. O'Connor? Mr. Jackson? Roll call, please.
Mora.
Aye.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. Motion carried.
We ask that the Board of Education approve the proposed fiscal year 2022 PACE budget as submitted.
Motion? I'll move. Ms. Mason? Mr. O'Connor? Roll call?
O'Connell.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. Mora. Motion carried.
Now, I'd just like to elaborate just a little bit on our return to school. So we have been working collaboratively on our return to school, our Berkeley Blueprint 2.0. So we've met collaboratively, discussed, we've looked at ISBE, CDC, IDPH, our local conditions. And so what you have received is what we would like to recommend as our return to school for the upcoming school year, knowing that it's still in a state of flux. There could be changes to what we are recommending. However, what I'd like to do is just give a highlight of some of those most important changes and before we discuss or before we approve. This plan, also our return to school, will help us with securing our $5 million in funding in ESSER 3. There's a requirement to that I mentioned a few months ago. So we met with all of our district administrators to collaborate to come up with this return to school. So we post this for comment for 30 days where parents can give their feedback about our return to school. We'll make any adjustments as necessary, and then we've met the requirements for the grant. So some of our background in terms of what are kind of a summary of updates is what I'd like to give. So first, that we will continue to monitor local health conditions, including positivity rates in our area, to determine our mitigation strategies. And any changes will be communicated to families, because that's an ongoing issue for all of us, and it's changing constantly. But thankfully, we have people like our district nurse who joined us tonight. Paula, can you say hi to everyone? I asked Paula to join us. Several years ago, the board was kind enough to create the position of district nurse. And Paula not only is our district nurse, but she also has earned her national board certification as a nurse. So she has been integral to everything we've done the last 18 months. And everything from our returning to school, how we worked our quarantine procedures, all of those intricate questions that were site-based, using our local data. Paula and I have, and all administrators and teachers have been depending on her counsel and the counsel of all our nurses. So I asked Paula to be here tonight because this return to school, Paula's been a big part of that as well. Oh, heck, let's give her a round of applause.
On a high level, can you give us an expectation going into the school year?
I'm sorry, what?
On a very high level, give us an expectation going to school year. What do you think we're going
Oh,
to
on the school year?
going into school?
I was just talking with Kelly. I'm excited that we're at this point. I'm excited that kids are coming to the building, that we're not questioning that, and that we're moving forward. We're taking our layers of safety. We're monitoring our community. We're encouraging vaccinations. And we're moving forward, and we're putting, kids in the buildings to be with their teachers for teaching and learning. So, I look forward to a good school year. I think we're on the right track as a community, and definitely as a district. So I'm encouraged.
I know that
Encouraged.
a lot of uncertainty out there. Do you think the masks is going to be part of
Well, I'll just do a summary really quick and see if that will help us with getting comfortable with what we're recommending. So we're going to continue to monitor the local conditions, and that's ongoing, that's daily.
Yeah,
We'll continue doing that. So each of our 6 district schools and the administration center has had its HVAC air duct systems thoroughly cleaned, and this was through the use of grant funds. I just want to point that out, that we didn't use local funds for that. So Mr. White did a wonderful job with that. So Dale, thank you. And that was very important for our teachers and support staff to have that done. We will be in full person learning for all students. There is no remote learning option at this time. If a child is not eligible for the vaccine and is under quarantine access, remote learning may be established. But we are not required to begin with that. The state's expectation is to get every child back in school. So that's our why, our premise, our goal, yeah, get everybody back. We now have on hand the Binax Now rapid COVID-19 test kits for use with symptomatic students and staff. Results are available in 15 minutes. The test is administered by the trained school nurse with the written consent of the parent for the student, or written consent of a staff member for staff assessment. And I want to thank Paula for that because we pursued this last year. We have the kits on hand. We did it a little bit last year, but now we're rolling it out. So we want to make sure parents understand that when you come back, when your child comes back to our school, if there is any symptom, any question, our nurse team could reach out to the parents. We can have a result in 15 minutes. And that will help us not only with contact tracing, but it's also going to help us with who can be in school and who can't be in school. Because we then will know if it's COVID related. We're going to keep our eye care room like we had before. Any concerns, kids will be in the eye care room or our isolation room until this is assessed. And a care plan is in place for every student. So I wanted to highlight that because that's something the state is recommending and we're ready for that. So that's a new thing from what we didn't have last year. We have that now. Okay. Paul, any comments on the Binax now? Does that summarize it accurately?
Absolutely, yep, it's in every building available, and the team, after team's trained, ready to use it.
So the most recent CDC guidance recommends that staff or students who are not vaccinated should wear masks while at school. So they went from must to should. And if I, Paula, recall our conversations on this, that wasn't by accident. They used that word on purpose. They want to get everyone back in school. So we are taking that approach that you should wear a mask if you are not vaccinated. Now, what we know will really make the difference is when the vaccine is available for the children who are under 12. So what we did is we set up clinics for that. We have a total of 6 vaccination clinics set up right now. 1 in August, both sides of the district. 1 in September, both sides of the district. And 1 in October, both sides of the district. We're hoping somewhere in that window that we will get the okay to administer that vaccination to the children who are under 12. So we're ready for it, but in the meantime, we're going to keep banging that drum of vaccination and even get the adults, because as many people who we can get vaccinated, the better for our goal of returning to school, because that's what we're trying to do with this.
What vaccine data are on our website?
What vaccine?
What vaccine data are we put on our website for parents?
Paul, I don't know if we have links, I believe, to the positivity rates.
Right, and with the clinics, I mean, there were information, but, yeah, things honestly through the CDC and IPH, yeah, things.
Just something to recommend, you know, it's hard to not politicize this whole issue that's become, but you read that 98% of the people that are now in the hospital are people that have not been vaccinated. You know, that type of information, I think, is important to share with our parents. Just encourage. So that's what, you know, things like that we can.
We will, we have and continue, an example of what you're talking about is, let's say we get back into school and there's a child who's not wearing a mask. Let's just say the child shows up. And we know the child is under 12. Our administrative team believes our kids will follow those expectations, that they will work. But let's just say there's a kid who doesn't. Our nurse team will call and they'll talk to that parent. And that's part of our education, because it isn't just for this child, it's for the kid, the family at home. And if there could be an elderly family member, if we've learned anything, it's that importance of that vaccination, because whether they're in school or not, there's contacts. And we've heard that before. Well, I'm afraid of in my own case, my mom was 92 years old. She's vaccinated, she went and got it. And she even said to me, I almost lived through 2 pandemic, she said, because of the timing of the earlier one from 1919, but she remembers that, people talking about it when she was a girl. Wow. So we are going to keep educating, and if we have to arrange transportation to one of our vaccination clinics, we'll try to do that for family members, because we want to fill up those clinics. That's kind of that sort of community outreach, and Paul and our nurse team will be in contact with our families. We're going to continue that. So anyone, staff or students who rides a school bus must wear a mask. So that was left there as a must. Again, not by accident if you're on that bus, because you can't do the 3 feet spacing really on the bus. Probably similar to an airline. You just have to do it. It doesn't matter if you're vaccinated or not, because you can't use your 3-foot mitigation strategy. So we're keeping all of our mitigation strategies. Our only adjustment really is we're adding Binax now. We've added the clean air ducts. We now have more vaccination clinics, and we're going to keep pushing that. But when you add the Binax now to that, and we can still do the 3 feet, but we're going to encourage mask wearing. We're going to keep the plexiglass up that we have in some of our buildings, the frequent cleaning, the hand sanitizing. And Paula, I think you found in our local data, which we're also supposed to look at, the importance of hand washing by our children.
Right, absolutely true. Hand washing soap and water, 20 seconds is still one of the strongest layers of communication. So making sure our students are able to do that before they're leaving the buildings and throughout the day.
And the CDC recommended last year to discontinue the health screenings when people come in the building with the temperatures. And then I checked with our nurse team and we really didn't have an issue with temperatures throughout the district. Is that correct, Paul?
Correct, yeah, no, honestly, there were some false positives actually. Students in a warm car or, something else that affected their temperature. So there was not a student excluded just based on, arriving at school with a fever. So CDC guidance really has taken that out of students coming to the building and doing temp checks.
And we worked, I should say we, the nurse team, and the principals, all the administrators, worked with families that if the children weren't feeling well, to keep them home.
Right.
We really emphasized that last year, just keep them home, because we were able to find ways to give alternate activities to the children rather than have them come in. But now again, we do have that Bidex now, so if anyone's not feeling well, the nurse has it right there, and we can give that test, and we have a result in 15 minutes, which is, to me, that's a big change from what we had available last year. So those are the reasons why we want to recommend this as our return to school. So we ask that the Board of Education accept the Berkeley School District 87 Blueprint 2.0 Guide to Reopening Schools as presented.
Mr. Chavez and Ms. Mason. Roll call, please.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. Mora. O'Connell.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And then one of the things we've been working on with school improvement is working with the Consortium of Educational Change. And the first project is going to be our strategic planning. And then we have some additional school improvement efforts that they're going to continue to work with us on. They've been a trusted partner for the last few years. So we are asking that the Board of Education approve the contract for the Consortium of Educational Change as presented. And this is funded entirely through grants.
Motion, please. Ms. O'Connell. Mr. Chavez. Roll call.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. Mora. O'Connell. Chavez. Hightower. Motion carried.
And I had just really one item with grant updates. I've sort of given that already with what we're going to be doing as a team until that new position is established. But I want to mention the Starting Right program. So this is a commercial, and here we go. I'll make it really short. It's been recommended to me by my mentors to participate if possible in the Starting Right program. And the Starting Right program is where the Illinois Association of School Administrators will facilitate a 2 to 3 hour program here on site about the role of the superintendent, the role of board members, to make sure that we have an effective, collaborative working relationship. So it's sort of for me, if I could ask you that. I feel like I want to do the best job I can as a superintendent, and I want to learn what are the recommended best practices by people who are in the field. And so if you would be willing to consider this, what we can do is share out more information in this Thursday's superintendent update, and to see if we could work out a convenient time when we could do it. There's a fee, I want to say it's approximately $400 to $500. We would have to schedule it. It's not something to be done immediately, but let's say within the school year, just to make sure. We also have some newer board members. And anyway, for myself, we're a learning organization. I want to meet, and I want to exceed your expectations. And so I want to make sure I'm as prepared as I can.
And you can always learn something too. I mean, really, I can.
So I would like to share more information.
Absolutely.
And then that's the end of my report.
Good point. Any questions for Mr. Superintendent? No? First job. Good job.
Thanks.
Lots of Okay. Is that what I'm doing? See?
Good evening, everyone. First, I want to just talk a little bit about our August summer learning program. We're calling it Return to Learn. And I just wanted to give you a brief update. Dr. Myzanek has been working with our primary principals. Our focus is really going to be about student and family readiness to return to school. And our focus is going to be on our incoming kindergarten students. And so we're going to be having some sessions. So it'll be a non-traditional, I should say, summer learning program. It'll be more around parents and students coming together and talking about readiness, building, agency together. So how can we get our students ready for what lies ahead that following week when they come to school? What routines to look for, how to help with separation, some of those kinds of things. So there'll be a morning session and an afternoon session to accommodate all the parents' different schedules. So more information is going to come out early next week for all of our families. So we're kind of taking a little bit of a different approach. I know there's a lot going on for our families, but we wanted to make sure that our primary kiddos had some experiences on what to expect when they come back to their classrooms, get familiar with the buildings and the setups, as well as our parents, and get them into the buildings. It might be the first time they've been in the buildings. So, and we're going to also extend that to some of our first graders as well, who have not been able to be with us due to the pandemic. We also have coming up, which I'm really excited about as well, is our Teacher Leader Summer Institute. So each year in August, we have 3.5 days where we bring in our new teacher leaders and our instructional coaches and our principals to talk about our PLC work that we have embarked on. This will be our 4th year for that. So I'm excited to get that going and train our new teacher leaders. I think we'll have a total of 6 new teacher leaders. So kind of continuing to build that teacher leader capacity in the district. So I'm excited to continue to grow that and harness that opportunities for our teachers to grow as leaders in the district. And then we are, hard to believe, but new teacher orientation will be here. August 16th, we kick that off. So we'll be over at North Lake Middle School, and we will share all the information with you. You are welcome to come. We'd love to introduce you on Monday, August 16th, if you're available in the morning, or anytime you can stop by. So we're kind of excited to do that. We're going to have some guest speakers. We have author Pete Hall coming. I talked about him a little bit last month about trauma-informed practices and building resilience and social emotional learning. And we'll have our Ready Math training and just have a great time to really get to know our new teachers and build them part of our Berkeley family. So I'm excited. We're going to do some tie-dye t-shirts. So come on, have some fun with us if you'd like.
Monday, August 16th.
Yep, throughout that entire week. So I will send you the agenda. Make sure we'll add that to our weekly update next week. Come on anytime and join us. And then due to the pandemic, we, Ms. Spatafore has put together a summer diagnostic team to help us meet and identify any of our students in need of special education screening in order to help determine their path for success as we start off the next school year. They're going to meet the first week of August. And we have several students who have presented with some special needs but don't have an IEP developed yet. So we want to ensure that those students have the right supports and they have to start a successful school year. But we also anticipate that we may have students moving in or have registered that may have needs that need to be met as well. So we just want to be prepared. And this is the first year, it really is in response to the pandemic, that maybe students that we were unaware of or maybe have been remote that didn't have all of the IEP pieces put in place for screens and processes. So we're trying to make sure we capture that so that they have all of their needs met prior to the school year and get everything in place. So we just wanted to make you aware of that. Do you have any questions for me?
Any Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Fields?
Yes. The summary of budget, statement of position, and student activity reports for the period ending June 30, 2021 are provided for your review. And then the first item, annual item, establishing the adoption calendar for the FY 22 budget and adopting or approving the tentative budget for fiscal 2022. There's a lot of information in here that we are using. There's a lot of many unknowns, so we are using placeholders for several staff members. A lot of the grants have not been, some have been submitted, but and the budget's not released to us, they're still under review. And other grants have not even been opened up for Dr. Sullivan or anyone in the district to submit. So some of them are assumptions, and we hope to have all of that, like Dr. Sullivan mentioned. The ESSER 3 should open up after the 30-day period from the blueprint 2.0. So we're hoping to have more final numbers when we come back with the final budget in September. So the suggested motion is that the Board of Education approve the tentative budget for fiscal year 2022 as presented, established Monday, September 27, 2021 as the date for the public hearing on the budget, and direct the Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Operations to have published the notice of public hearing for this date and to display the tentative budget for fiscal year 2022 in the Administration Center as required by law.
A motion? Ms. Mason?
I'll second.
Mr. O'Connor? Roll call?
Mason.
Aye.
Mora.
Aye.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And the next is an annual item designating the interest earned during the year. The suggested motion is that the Board of Education adopt the resolution designating interest earnings for fiscal year 2022 as presented.
Motion? Mr. Jackson? Mr. Gillette? Roll call?
Mora.
Aye.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. Motion carried.
And the next item is also an annual item. The costs for the copiers are paid for through debt service, but it is not through the levy, so annually we permanently transfer the funds from the ed fund to the debt service fund. So the suggested motion is that the Board of Education adopt the resolution authorizing the permanent interfund transfers for debt service as presented.
Motion?
I'll move.
Mr. O'Connor? Mr. Mason? Roll call?
O'Connell.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. Mora. Aye. Motion carried.
And the assignment of the bids, the suggested motion is that the Board of Education assign the awarded bid for trade packages 09D tile work, 09F gym flooring work, and 14A elevator work as presented and approved to Gilbane Building Company, and authorizes the board, president, and the administration to take all actions reasonable and necessary to accomplish the assignment.
Motion? Mr. O'Connor? Mr. Jackson? Roll call?
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Mora. O'Connell.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And I wanted to give the board a quick update. The skip renewal update, we have submitted our application and the skip pool. So far, the only information is that they anticipate another card renewal. The July 1st renewals, the numbers came in very late, very close to the July 1 renewal date. So we anticipate, since the skip pool is a December 31 renewal, that the numbers, the premium numbers from the carriers will come in late again this year with this renewal as well as they saw at the July 1 renewal pool. And So I'll continue to provide updates as the SKIP management team shares updates with us. And then I wanted to inform the board, the Gallagher Bassett, which is handles some of the liability claims for the SKIP pool and other pools, experienced a data breach in September, which impacted their phones and email. Anyhow, we received communication from the SKIP Executive Committee about that. No District 87 systems were accessed, and information concerning claimants that were litigating member districts during that time were accessed. Gallagher Bassett is working with a company, Kroll, to provide notification, monitoring services as required by law. But this time, there's nothing that we need to do on it this time. And then audit update, the auditors are scheduled to complete their final field work in August. They will be here for 2 weeks. The demand response, which is that last month I shared the payments we received for participating in that demand response program where we reduced our electric utility usage. So we had a power shutdown conducted on July 2nd. Everything went well. I don't believe we have the results of that yet. So we'll provide more information as it becomes available. And then Mr. White and his department is working on the student transportation, preparing for the new school year. And that is the end of my report, unless there are any questions.
Mr. White, are you ready?
We're always ready.
All right, that's what we're talking about. Any question? That's right. Thank you for your report. Ms. Travis, welcome.
Tonight, my report is basically, I told you I would give you a number, a breakdown of certified and support staff resignations. And in the last week, it has grown. So certified staff, we have 19 vacancies to fill. And for support staff, we have about 16 vacancies to fill. So, you know what I'll be doing for the next few weeks.
Absolutely. And we know Ms. Travis will get it done.
We will make it happen. The principals, you know, everybody's been helpful. We're reaching out to people, so we will make it happen. I was on a call today from some other HR colleagues, and same thing, you know, late resignations and different things, people leaving to go to Chicago, so we're not alone. You know, doesn't make me feel happy, but at least I know we're not alone, so we're in this together. You know, if you get a great candidate, you have 1 or 2, let me know. If I get a great candidate and I have like 2 or 3, you know, we can work together, so we're in this together.
But we know you're gonna pull it off for us.
We are going to pull it off.
You've been the glue for a long time. Pull it off.
We're gonna pull it off together.
All right.
All right. Unless you have any questions, that's the end of my report.
Any questions from anyone from the board? Minute reports that was done tonight? Any other new business? Announcement, next board meeting will be August 30th. August 30th. At 6:30.
6:30.
All right? Just a flag. All right. We have a motion to adjourn. Ms. Mason, Mr. Jackson. In roll, please.
Jackson,
Right?
Mason, Mora, O'Connell,
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Motion carries.